Today at the Rockpit, we get to catch up with Jerome Reuter, who's better known as the voice and mastermind behind the Project Rome. With a career that's entering its 21st year, Rome has given us 23 albums. And on December 19 of 2025, his last two albums, The Tower and The Hierophant, were simultaneously released. Welcome to the Rockpit. Welcome to Australia once again. How are you, Jerome?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, you aren't a stranger to Australian shores anymore. You did a brief run of shows in August of last year. They were stripped back acoustic shows. How did you find your first visit to Australia, and how were the audiences?
It was wonderful, to be honest. First time in Australia, there were quite some people to see it, which was great and quite a surprise in a way. And yeah, I just love the country, love the people, the food, like really everything. So it's a very interesting mix of I lived in Britain for like a year, and it some of it reminded me of that for obvious reasons, but just like in a kind of more Florida kind of way, I guess.
Yeah,
Just an interesting vibe. Yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah.
fantastic. So, those shows were a little different for you. They were acoustic, they were stripped back. It was just you, there was no band behind you. When it comes to performing like that, do you feel I guess a little more in touch with the music that you're playing? Does it resonate and seem to come from deeper within, I guess?
Yeah, I mean you're really rediscovering the songs again, because I mean there's no filter, there's no wall in any way between the artist and the audience.
Yeah.
Uh, and also the songs, because I'm not like on a click track or it's nothing else, it's just me and the guitar. So the good thing is, you don't have to pay attention to anyone else. Like I'll be playing the same song or whatever. Of course, if I do mess up, it's pretty obvious. But then again, it's part of the charm of it all. And the songs do take on a different meaning when they're sung solo like that in more intimate locations. And when I'm with the band, it's really, we're kind of in our bubble in a way. Like we do our thing, and there's no real way for people to interact with it, really. It's more like, this is it, take it or leave it. Whereas solo, it's a dialogue.
And did you find that, most of the audience that were intended in attendance, were they, career-long fans, or were they new fans, or were they discovering you for the first time through word of mouth? The feedback and the interaction that you got from fans after the shows, how was that?
Uh, Usually it was a mix of both. So there were people who had known Rome for quite some time and were waiting for me to finally make it over there. Um, And then there were people who just kind of heard of it and like, oh, well, might as well check it out. Or other people who had been dragged along by friends or their spouse or whatever, and who ended up liking it, as far as I could tell. And then, yes, of course, some interactions with supporters after the show that were delighted to finally have a chat and just see something live. Yeah.
For sure. And when we talk about, the 21-year career, and the multiples of albums that you've released during that career, for those of us that may not be, or for the listeners that may not be familiar with your work, give us a little bit of a career history. You mean a look at your influences, and ultimately give viewers an understanding of what makes you the artist that you are today.
Oh, that's an easy one. I don't know where to start. Well, my background is kind of like in punk and metal to some degree as well. And so I've always played in bands as a teenager. And at some point, I kind of gave up on the idea of ever being in a band and playing more than the one or like local show every now and then. And I started this project, which was really just meant as a solo kind of studio project because I was not really, my hope was pretty much gone. And So I was pretty free to do whatever I wanted, and that's just what I did. So it has always been a mix of things. So it comes the most like the biggest chunk of the musical world of Rome comes from this post-punk, industrial, singer-songwriter, neo-folky kind of environment. And then I sprinkled in some, I don't know, cold wave or even some like hints of punk, folky punk or whatever, even synth rock now and then. And so there's bits of pieces of lots of subgenres, but the main backbone is probably just singer-songwriter and chanson traditions. Um, I used to I grew up listening to people like Jacques Brel, who's like this gigantic songwriter from Belgium, which is right next door to where I live. It's always been part of our cultural heritage, and it's in there somewhere, as well as some French songwriters, and then of course the obvious the three C's of Cash, Cone, and Cave. So that and then something along those lines. That's Rome with some drummings.
Yeah, fantastic. And you touched on, I guess the world loves to label music, and you touched on sort of neo folk and or dark folk as the media release sort of covered it as. But I find that there's just so much more to that. And I mean, to what you do, there is such a variety to the band stuff. And when you talk about the big three C's, they're very obvious as influences. There's a lot of, certainly on the last two records, the Tower and the Hierophant, there's a lot of Nick Cave vibe that I get from that, and that really excited me. It's done. You've done what you do so well. It's uniquely yours, but there's that brooding storytelling which I absolutely love. When it comes to writing records and finding subject, there always there seems to be this well-read gentleman behind all of this. When it comes to writing, is a book and literature that influences you?
Yeah, I mean that's probably the most important part of it all, of the whole writing process. I don't really listen to music much because music is really holy to me. So I'm very picky and I'm very aware that whatever I listen to will find its way somehow into my work. So I try, and also I cannot have music on just like that. Like either I listen to it respecting the work as it is, or I just, I prefer silence for most of the time. And literature, in its many forms, is what keeps me going, really, because I'm interested in a lot of stuff. I love to read. I'm not an expert on anything, but I'm just an enthusiast of everything, pretty much. So that's how ideas just come together. I have my notebooks where I write stuff down, and when I come across some subject matter that I think is worthy of uh, some theme-based record, then everything that I've been feeding on is just poured into that one channel. That's basically how it works. So I'm continuously picking up things here and there, and then at some point they fall into place. And most of it is from books more than other music.
Or yeah, or even social commentary. There seems to be a lot of history emerged in what you do, and that's it's incredible. I love it. I love it. I really do. Really
Cheers.
sunk myself right into these last two records, and they're just brilliant bits of story writing. And I guess when we talk about the Tower and the Hierophant both being released on the same day, is there an order that they're meant to be listened to? Is
I I think there is. It's related to the order of how they came about. So I basically started out with the tower, and it almost felt like an accident because um, I had kind of gone through the work on the previous thing, and I was just kind of not knowing where to go at all. And I picked up this old 12th string that I hadn't touched in years. And because I wanted that kind of fuller sound guitar wise. and I knew I wanted to go into some quieter kind of territory. And I just sat down and started coming up with these progressions that ended up being basically 80 90% of the album that I wrote pretty much in one go in 1 or 2 days. And
Wow.
then and that never happened to me because usually I work on an album as such where there's like different moods next to each other, and I'm really I try to come up with an order of things that is kind of makes sense and is interesting as a journey. Whereas this, it was just like the one piece where it felt like one long song with different chord progressions, but one leading into the next, but they were actually different songs, but it was all one piece. And I had no words yet, but I knew it was going to be called The Tower because I had these pages in notebooks where I kept adding stuff to that theme, and I
Yeah.
knew that that's where it's going to go because I was also in need of that retreat and just focusing on my inner life more than the what's going on in the world because I had done quite a bit of that on the previous records. So it was time for more like introspective kind of work. And so this album just came like within a couple of days, it was all there, which is very unusual for me anyway. And I just kept the ball rolling after that, although this was very much the piece was done.
Yeah.
But I liked the flow of it, obviously, like, oh,
Yeah.
that was easy. Let's try this again. And of course that didn't work. That didn't work at all, but still I was kind of the ball was rolling and I was yeah, still using a similar technique when it comes to chord progressions and that sort of stuff, but it was obviously it had to go onto something more, something else. So on the Hierophant, there's more diversity, let's say.
Yeah.
There's a few more songs where the orchestration is a bit more complex than on the Tower, which is deliberately uber simple. I remember I went into the studio the first day and I told Tom, the guy I work with, and have been for many years, I thought, now we'll do the most boring record ever, but it will be great. So that was, so we were very aware that it's going to be monotonous as hell, but that was just the thing, you know. So
Yeah.
we would carefully sprinkle things here and there so that when you listen to it again and again, there's still stuff you can discover. It's
Oh,
not as
absolutely. Yeah, I was just about to say that each listen I've discovered something different, and it's funny you mentioned that orchestration because that really does sit and stand in its own right in the correct places in building that. I find that again that I'm glad that you said that that's the order to listen to them because that's the way I've generally consumed them. So and it does have that really nice flow. But if we go back to the album that you toured Australia behind, the Civitas Soils, um, that was a band record, and it was quite a lively record. Uh, was it hard to sort of, or was it just something that you needed to do to step away from the band and explore
Um,
more of that, I guess, storyteller?
in a way, yes. I have to say though that I hardly ever do band records. So even the records that sound like a band, it never really is. Except the live sessions we do, like we had this Hansa sessions. That's actually the band as it was on tour. We just after the last day of the tour, we would book us into a studio and record as the band
Oh,
play. And that's a band record, but otherwise it's really just me and usually one other person. Throughout the years, it was like 2 or 3 people that I worked with, and for like 7 or 8 years now, it's been Tom Gotti here in Luxembourg that I've done these things with, and it's really just the two of us.
yeah,
So we sometimes bring in musicians to do stuff that we cannot do. So he's pretty good on the bass, and I do the guitar work, and obviously the vocals,
yeah,
and the rest of synths. It's like whoever's closer to the keyboard or has the better idea or whatever. But it's really just the two of us. And it's then kind of my decision, like how big do I want this record to sound? Is it gonna have this band feel? The good thing in a way about Rome is that, as I mentioned earlier, it was conceived as this solo studio project. It wasn't meant as a band. Playing live was
Yeah,
never on the cards really when I started out. And then it was kind of difficult to get it. Like, how do I was recording these songs and like 16 tracks of guitar. Yeah, whatever. It
yeah,
doesn't ever have to be
yeah,
on stage. And then it finally kind of had to. But I got past that. And in recent years, the stuff I wrote was more and more stage compatible.
yeah,
And then we would pick from this extensive discography by now. We have a few records to choose from, so we just pick the songs that work with whatever the crew is at a
yeah,
given time. So it wasn't really me needing to step away from the band, but it was me needing to step away from the world.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So in 2025, you actually had five full-length releases, the Dublin Sessions 2, Civitas Sols, and you went and did something that I found was really interesting. Flowers from Exile. You went and revisited the album from 2009. What made you go and do that?
That is a very good question because it's very unlike me because I don't look back at all ever really. And of course, 20-year anniversary and all of that, there's a little bit of looking back going on. But this is actually not, it wasn't my idea. But I liked it when it was presented to me because it actually originated from Patrick Damiani, who's the guy that I worked with. This is again like I work with Tongati now. Back then it was Patrick Damiani where when I was living in Germany. And we hadn't really seen each other in a while, and he was renewing his homepage and wanted to show some of the productions that he had been involved in, and then he wanted to also present some of the work we had done together as Rome. And but it's been 15 years, it doesn't sound quite the way I would like to present it now. So I did a remix. Do you like this? And I did. And I said, yeah, this is great. But can you do the others as well? Because since you dug up the tapes now, might as well. And but there was no, I mean, this is 3 or 4 years ago now. So there wasn't any timeline. And because I mean, the record's been released and I don't like to mess with old recordings,
Yeah,
especially when they had their moment and they were quite successful. I mean, this record was probably the one that put us on the map a little bit. And so I didn't want to touch that because you can only ruin it really, even if it's better to some standards.
it's yeah, it's
Like if you know the record that particular way and that's how it touched you, like whatever you do to it, it's just going to be different. And why do that? Unless the sound was horrible and
yeah,
which it wasn't, but it's kind of a new take on it. And he really dug deep into the original master tapes, and we found some stuff that we've forgotten that we'd done, and or other stuff that was in the mix, but not really. Like you can really hear it, and like, why did we bury this? So it was an interesting process with which I had very little to do because I just let him do his thing.
yeah,
So yeah, that's how that happened. And in the 20-year anniversary, I mean, for that year, it seemed like a good idea. Like, okay, let's just release it now. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, fantastic. Just something that I'm always curious of when somebody decides to go and revisit something, what the thinking behind it is. And it's great when you know that you can go back and you can rediscover, as you said, things that were buried in the original recordings or in the original sessions that may have been omitted from the final product. Um, Incredible stuff. Now, if we look forward into 2026, I mean, for you, you've got a massive tour of the US and Canada coming up. I looked at the schedule and I went, my God, this man is crazy. It's 33 shows in 38 days across America and Canada. It's relentless. Tell us about the tour, and is it behind these last two records, the Tower and the Hierophant?
Well, the thing is that I got asked by this American-based band, WADA, it's a metal band, and Jake of WADA just wanted this to happen and basically invited us as a band over, but then it got a little complicated to free the band for that whole period of time, and so I'm going there solo. Um, Well, interesting times we live in. This is a while ago that we kind of decided to do that. I'm not sure I would, do that now, like decide. It's tricky these days. But anyway, yeah, it's quite a relentless tour. But I guess that's how you have to tour the US,
Yeah,
it's just gigantic, and I'm very happy that I get the chance to do that because Rome has toured there, but it was bits and pieces, it
yeah,
was never this kind of tour it will be now. Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's comprehensive. I'm looking at the map and I'm looking at the dates and I'm going, man,
yeah.
this guy's crazy. Absolutely crazy, but that's fantastic. And I guess to touch on that and touring, I mean, plans to come back to Australia shortly, or is that on the cards again?
Yes, I mean we're working on it. There's something, but I don't know how far down the pipeline it actually is.
Yeah,
I recently changed my booking agent, so but he mentioned something quite recently, but it's like super early days.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean I want to go back as soon as possible. In for what excuse? I mean I really really want to go back to Australia quite soon. So.
yeah. Fantastic. And again, I didn't catch any of the shows, but were during those shows last August, where any of the songs from the Tower and the Hierophant featured in the show?
No, because this was in August, and so it was months before, and I had just released this other stuff,
Yeah,
and so and it was a first tour in Australia. Sorry, first tour in Australia. So I just played some classics and
yeah,
that sort of stuff, and there might have been one or two unreleased, but it wasn't even from the Tower. It was
yeah.
something else I was working on. Um, yeah, no, I didn't want to confuse people further. It was like, okay, so this is from the new album, but I heard in that it's a lot.
Absolutely. And I just in talking to you, I gather that when inspiration strikes, it absolutely strikes with you, and you're very prolific in the work and your work output. Does being solo, for the use of a better term, on these last two records, has that freed you up a little bit too, to be that little bit more prolific, and you're not having to think about extensive arrangements or working with others, and it just becomes a pouring out of, as you said, chords that work together, and then words that fit those progressions?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say. I was very well aware of what I was gonna do when set out to do these records. I was very specific about the identity of who's singing
Mm.
and in what context. And it was really just the guy with the guitar and some synth work behind it.
Yeah,
And so there was no thoughts given to like, okay, so what instrument should come to the fore at what point, and how do I have a kind of diverse genre thing going on from one song to the next? What's going to be in? No, it was really very pure in its intent. And I knew the words would be the thing. And I'm a bit surprised about the result. I mean, the feedback I got, because a lot of people have had very, very kind words
mm,
for it. I wasn't really expecting that. I thought some of the kind of hardcore neo-folk fans would really dig it,
yeah,
because it's kind of retro in a way,
yeah,
but in its simplicity and all of that. But it seemed to just hit a nerve with some people in a different way. And so I'm very happy. But that was not the intention. I thought, okay, well, this might be a good moment to release this stuff because like there's been so much going on, and it's kind of a good way to turn the page onto the next chapter that it's going to be Rome. I don't really know what it's going to be, but it seemed like, okay, this winter twin, it's a good way to end that second decade, and let's see where this goes from here. Very introspective, very kind of calm, not as agitated. I was running around like a madman these last years. Um, so it didn't really compare to previous work in any way, really. And
no,
also the writing, like I said, it was just one, because usually I work on many different things at the same time. Like I have these little drawers that I put stuff in. And so whenever something comes my way, I kind of like, okay, I'll put this there for now and then revisit it later. And then, as I said, after a while, things fall into place. Whereas this was just very clean and pure in its intent. So yeah, it just so happened. I should do this more often, I guess, but you cannot control those things really.
No, I guess that's a part of the creative, isn't it? When it strikes, it strikes. And it's fantastic that you've been able to pull out two incredible records from that inspiration. Now, as far as there was a really limited run on vinyl for each of them, are they still available, and where can people buy them from if they're so inclined to buy physical product?
Well, our main shop has run out of them, but they still, I mean, you can still find them here and there. There's copies on different outlets that still carry them, but I couldn't tell you which one. But yeah, it is still available. Not from our main kind of source. We have this one shop in Germany, Fan.de, that carry most of what I mean, they always get like the biggest chunk of any pressing. So they're sold out, but it's still somewhere to be found for
Lurking,
sure.
still, still sitting in shops everywhere. So, for those that are interested in checking out, your extensive catalog and the diversity in the catalog, as well as the Tower and the Hierophant, obviously streaming services have it. Where can people find out more about you as well if they are new to you?
We have this very sporadically updated homepage called romepage.org. And then, yeah, of course, social media. We love it. So there's bits and pieces of information there with upcoming shows and the like. But yeah, I mean, streaming services, I guess, just have fun
Yeah.
discovering the stuff and yeah.
Look, it's an incredible dive into the catalogue. I haven't sat down with all of it like in intently. I haven't sort of sat down. There have been bits and pieces here and there. It's like I heard, the last two records, and I went back and I went, okay, this deserves to go back further and further. And it's been quite the journey. And I absolutely do love what you do. I'm
Yes.
surprised it's taken me as long as it has to discover you. But I mean, I'll be watching what you're doing and what's happening in the world of Rome from now on. So again, thank you for your time today, Jerome. I won't keep
Thanks
you
so
much
much for
longer.
having me.
It's been great chatting with you and sort of meeting you in the virtual world. And next time you're in the country, I'll certainly make sure I come along to a show. So
Absolutely. Let's do
uh,
that.
you've won a fan here.
Thank you so much.
Not
Great.
a problem. All right,
Well,
Jerome, on behalf of the Rock Pit in Australia, we'll wrap it up. Thank you again for your time, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.